Hi, in the previous session we have seen the reasons for learning Python, what are the benefits of Python, what are the areas where Python can be used. Now in this session we are going to start how do we work with Python. Now to work with Python we require a Python interpreter. Python comes inbuilt when you're working on Linux platform and you can start working it without installing anything extra. Whereas on Windows, Python does not come inbuilt by default. You need to download Python and then install before we use Python. Now in order to download Python, you can just go to python.org/downloads and here you get the latest version of Python and you can download this and install this. It's quite easy to download and install it, guys. Now this particular downloadable basically gives you a basic IDE called as idle plus all the core libraries which are required to work with basic Python. Now if you want to work with better IDEs and all, you do have other IDEs like PyCharm, Spider, Jupyter Notebook, and we will be using that in the later sessions. Now once you have installed Python, and now let us see how do we launch idle. In order to launch idle, you can just go to the search bar and just search for idle. The version what I'm using is 3.8. Now what we get here is basically Python shell. This is very similar to your Linux shell. On Linux shell, or you can say Windows command prompt, you can execute any of the Windows commands or Linux commands or Linux shell and it will give you the output. The same way out here on a Python shell, you can execute or run any of the Python commands. Now some of the simple Python commands is I just want to write 5 plus 2. This is a valid Python statement to add the value 5 and 2, and you can just see we got the answer as 7. Or might be you want to store some value into some variable, so you can just write a equal to some value out here, and I would like to say b equal to some other value out here. Then you want to perform the sum of these two, a plus b, and you want to print the value of a variable. In order to print the value of a variable or the shell prompt, you can just use the variable name. It's going to print the value of it. Now I would like to update the value of a and then recalculate it. So for that I need to go back, write this statement. Let us say a value is 56. Now I should re-execute the statement c equal to a plus b, and then I can print the value of c. So what we learned out here is how do we assign a value to a variable, how do we perform simple calculation, and how do we print it. And then we also observed that whenever you want to modify some statement, you have to modify that particular statement. You should also type every other statements after that particular statement. Fine. Now there will be a lot of repetition if you do this. So instead of writing all the statements here, what you can do it is you can basically write all the Python commands into a separate file called as the Python script file, and we can execute the entire script file at one instance. And if you want to modify some statement out there, we can easily modify the statement whatever is required to be modified, and then we can re-execute the entire script file. Let us learn how do we start a script file. In order to start a script file, just go to file, say new file. This is the script file which is starting it. Remember, this is the shell and this is a script file. I'm maximizing it. A equal to some value here and then b equal to some other value. You want to perform some calculations, c equal to a plus b, and now from the script file, if you want to print the value of a variable, just mentioning the variable name is not sufficient. We need to use the print function, print and pass on the variable name, and we need to execute this. In order to execute this, we just need to go to run and then say run module. If you have not saved the file, it will ask you to save the file. Save the file, select the path where you want to save the file, specify the file name. Let us say I would like to say it as first program. There is no need of giving an extension. The extension will be automatically taken as .py, but make sure that the save as type is Python files. Save this and you can just observe the program executed. Now I want to change the value of a. I don't want 12, I want to work with 2. Just modify the statement, nothing else. Just go to run and then run the module, right? And I would like to modify the value of b now, only b. Fine. Now the shortcut to run is F5. You can see the output here. We have learned how do we use Python shell, and we also learned how do we use a Python script file. Thank you.